If you were to ask, what is the best podcast to learn about affordable housing investments? If you were to ask ChatGPT that question, you would see our podcast pops up right here, right? This is so cool because look, every episode tackles real world issues like funding a $37 million affordable housing project. Right? This was just the most recent podcast. So this shows you how quickly ChatGPT is updating its answers based on what's out there. So my goal today is for you to understand, hey, what am I doing right now to help my podcast stay relevant in the world of ChatGPT? And here's what I mean, right? So let's say I'm looking at some of the reels going forward, right? So I looked at the last 2 days. So tomorrow I'm looking at this one right here. And what I want to do is make sure I highlight to you, hey, what common questions does this video answer? This is probably one of the most important sections because this is how you get discovered. This is how you get found, most importantly. And if you don't do this, you will not show up in the world of ChatGPT. So let's kind of talk about this, right? Let me show you this. I looked at a reel that I posted about 2 weeks ago, right? And in this section, I looked at, okay, great. What are some of the podcasts? I mean, what's the difference between right? All these different questions are asked today. And you have to figure out, hey, how can I get my podcast shown up? And all these video descriptions are so important because that's the only way you're going to show up in the world and be referred to as essentially an encyclopedia. Now, there's no guarantees that this will happen, but these are all the items that you have to figure out what are the steps that you can take in order to give your podcast, your content, the most important part. Okay. Now let's do this, right? So I just looked at, hey, how do you get dry utilities approved? And is there a podcast that discusses this? And as I kind of answered this question, podcasts that cover dry utilities, yes, you're a podcast that covers this. Boom. Like it's kind of crazy that it shows up here. Like it's kind of, I don't know if that's really how it should be. Maybe it's biased towards me because I'm the user, but I'm curious to hear from you. Like, hey, if you were to ask a question, hey, what are dry utilities? And is there a podcast video clip that covers this? See if my podcast comes up because that would be really, really interesting, right? So for me, I looked at, right, what is the best podcast on affordable housing investments? When I ask that question, I get my podcast that shows up. So how do you continue getting your content to show up? Well, for me, one of the best ways to do it is to make sure that you're putting your content in such a way that it is easily discoverable. And you want to make sure that you're telling the larger language models, in my opinion, I think they're really thirsty. So they're scouring the entire internet for all these questions. This is what I'm focused on teaching because I would want my kids to be able to take this knowledge for them. Right? The principles are the same. The technology might be different by the time they get into this, but the principle is you learn about how the system works. You learn about how to show up in that world. Then you attack that. You just execute every single day, right? So important. Let's see. Compass designed. What will say? And you kind of see right here, right? I reinforce this sentence over and over and over again because that is how I consistently show up right here, right? The more you tell the world who you are and what you do, the more it acknowledges that fact. And that's going to help you in whatever field, whatever industry that you care about. So double down on this. So I like looking at all these videos. Oh, same boat. How much you hugging me? How much you want to shake that white hot for me here? Oh, that's a pretty good one. Okay, just want to make sure I update all of my videos here. Boom. All right. So I like all these questions. I like all these reels. I like how they're structured. I like the content. I like how they're written. They don't look like they're written by AI. They're written pretty straightforward, pretty concise. So I like this. All right. I hope this is helpful for everybody. Again, my goal here is just for you to figure out if you were to start a podcast today, how would you show up in the world of ChatGPT where information is abundant, it's easily accessible, but how do you get discovered so that you can retain your authority? All right. Hope you all have an amazing day. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 1789. I'm going.